We are live for a new episode of the Electric Podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Wintraub. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm good.
Nice. And we are doing a little early show on a Thursday on early mornings in, where you guys are. It's late afternoon where I am because I'm still on a little workation here in Europe after IAA. But I'm going to be back next week back home. So we're going to be back on our old setup. But this week, at least, it shouldn't be too much audio problem. We got our set as its own setup, and I got a little bit better one this week. So we should be good for a good show, and we have plenty to talk about. So let's jump right in, starting with the Powerwall 3. So earlier in the week, we learned of the first Powerwall 3 installations, but Tesla had yet. Let me mute myself, mute my notification, though that would be useful. Okay. The Powerwall 3 installation started, but Tesla had yet to launch it on their website. We already had a lot of information about it because we had a few exclusive reports on Electrek over the last few months about the upcoming launch of Powerwall 3, but no official information from Tesla, even though installation started. But yes, September 12th, 2 days ago, Tesla updated its website to launch the Powerwall 3, which is going to be complementary to the Powerwall 2 and Powerwall Plus. So it's going to be a new lineup that address the markets in different ways. But now we have the specs. So as we exclusively reported, the bigger upgrade is the power output, which is now at 11.5 kilowatt continuous. They decided to keep the same energy capacity at 13.5 kilowatt hour. Also, there's been rumors that it would be maybe an LFP cells. Tesla doesn't talk about chemistry in the specs, like they never talk about chemistry anywhere in their cars or anything like that, officially at least, on the consumer side facing stuff. But I have to deduct that it's not LFP just because of the weight, because it's barely so if it was the same energy capacity as the Powerwall 2. But LFP, it would be heavier, and it is heavier, but barely heavier. And what would account for that is the fact that there's an integrated solar inverter in it. So it has to be heavier for that rather than the energy capacity. Also, it's the exact same energy capacity. So you would have to assume that probably Tesla is using the same actual battery module in the Powerwall, just a different power electronics around it, including that solar inverter that I just mentioned. So it's solar to grid efficiency of 97.5% with 6 solar input with the maximum power point trackers. Installations is all the same stuff. Apparently easier to install, but I mean um, where you can install it with what kind of temperature, minus 4 Fahrenheit up to 122 Fahrenheit. Flood and dust resistant, flood resistance up to 2 feet. Still a nice 10-year warranty. It's a little smaller, though thicker than, so not as high, not as wide, but 1 inch thicker than the Powerwall 2. Of course, the Powerwall Plus, you also have the inverter on top that's sort of attached to it, so that is definitely taller. But yeah, those are the main changes. Elon commented on it briefly. Where did it say? Oh, no, that was okay. That was on the other post, but he did say that the main difference is ease of installation and power output. And the power output, the difference being so big, is making the Powerwall 3 useful as a single unit. Because I know, like, same energy capacity, obviously, but what most people don't know is that the power capacity was the main reason that people would install more than one Powerwall at their place, because the 5 kilowatt continuous output is just not that useful. Obviously, that it's all depending on where you're installing it. So if you have a tiny little shack of a house, you might be super energy efficient, and 5 kilowatt might be enough. But if you have a fridge and you want to run you want to run your dryer, you want to run things like that, like it takes a lot of energy. So those are all things that it takes into account. And apparently it's also easier to install. Obviously, if you're installing it with a solar system at the same time, the solar inverter is integrated, so that's one less thing to install. So that's a big deal. And yeah, so now that Tesla has also the Powerwall 2 in its lineup, the Powerwall 3 is going to be used for a brand new installation at the same time as a solar system. that is going to be compatible with the solar inverter. And Powerwall 2 can be installed with an existing system, so it matches most major solar inverters out there, or with a new system that is not compatible with the Tesla Powerwall 3 solar inverter, basically. So you have an option for everyone.
So does this also include the gateway? So for instance, when your power goes out, there's another box in the old system where you could see that there,
Yeah.
where it
So
shuts
no,
down.
apparently no, because that the first installation we saw here, the gateway was there
They
too.
still have
So,
the gateway.
so
Well,
the
it is.
solar
I mean,
inverter is the one that's being eliminated.
right. And as the commenter said, that's good for string inverters if that's the kind of solar setup you want. But kind of the big players out there are Enphase, which do micro inverters, and Solar Edge, which do optimizers, which you'll still need a external inverter for that. But simple if you're using Tesla string inverters, which obviously
Yeah.
Tesla would want you to use.
Yeah, and for those Tesla is still selling the Powerwall 2, so that's why the two product are now being side by side. It's not Powerwall 3 replacing Powerwall 2 as a
right. So if you had an external solar inverter, you would get the Powerwall 2 because you wouldn't need the stuff on the 3.
yeah.
It is nice though that it's doing more jobs in one package.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's gonna probably make Tesla a little bit more competitive for their own installation, the solar roof, for example, where they're gonna save on installation on that. So the installation time, installation cost.
Yeah, I mean, if you have solar on your roof, you don't need quite as much battery because theoretically the sun's coming out during the morning. When you're using most of your energy, and it's going to be there the whole day, and it'll keep the battery replenished during an outage. So I like the product. Obviously I already have a solar setup, so it's not going to benefit me at all.
And you have the original Powerwalls
The
too.
original, actually, the
Right.
Powerwall 2s. The original ones were like
Yeah.
that weird shape,
Oh
like
yeah, the
shield.
rounded one. I mean,
Yeah,
those lasted like a year. I think
right.
they were quickly replaced by Powerwall 2. All right, we have a lot of news that came out this week related to the new Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson. So that was the big deal this week. Over the last week or two, there's been excerpts coming out in the media as part of the promotional push for the book. But the book actually came out on the 12th, and we've been digging into it, trying to find some bits and pieces of information that are newsworthy. Because obviously, if you've been following Elon Musk closely over the last few years, the book might still be worth reading and everything, but a lot of it you already know about. So it's one of those, like, if you're a giant fan, you might want like the 10% you don't know about, you might want it. I might be a little bit harsher with 10%, but let's say like 10 to 30% that is actual new information for you. But if you're a big fan, it might be worth it. But we've been digging into it to try to get oh, shit. The hotel is calling me, and if I don't pick up, they're gonna
All right.
give me
Let's talk about robotaxis. So we're looking at this design. Actually, in the book, they had the original design, and it was like a kind of like a cardboard mock-up. And I think a couple big tweeters mentioned that, hey, that they're showing the robotaxi design, and it would be kind of interesting if the robotaxi was only a two-seater. A lot of the other like robotaxi designs from Waymo and Cruise are four-seaters. So just talking about like how the robotaxi is a two-seater, and that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I want to preface this with some like a grain of salt, maybe, because the way this was introduced in the book is not like, hey, this is the robotaxi. It was introduced in the book more like in between chapters, there was a few pictures somewhat related to that chapter, and this particular picture appeared before the most recent chapter. When I say recent, I mean the in time. Related to the robotaxi. It's called a robotaxi concept. So it might be one of many different concepts. And then secondly, there was also this picture that was much earlier in the book, in the 2016 era of the book, when they started talking about autopilot, which back then Tesla was already talking about a robotaxi too. But it's not clear when is this from exactly in time. And it says an early, and this one it says an early robotaxi, and it looks to be the same, roughly the same thing, or the same shape at least. So it might be an early vehicle that's not the robotaxi now. So let's preface this with that, because for also it's unlike Tesla to release a new product that way, to unveil a new product that way. That's not really normally what they do. But to play the devil's advocate to my own point here, at the same time, it might be like Jackson was like embedded with Elon Musk for years, and he got an interview with everyone, including Franz. And we can talk about Franz a little bit about that too, because maybe we can come back to it later, because it's not exactly related to that. But the book made me think that Franz is a much bigger leader at Tesla than I knew about. I mean, I knew it was critical in the design science of things, but I think it goes like much further than that in terms of entire product.
He was running the production at for the Model S for the
At
first
one
year.
point, yeah.
Yeah. You're like, what? The designer, like, he's, and there was a lot of like, well, he's learning what his designs do. Like, hey, that little thing I did now causes these people to have to do this or whatever. So I mean, from an experience standpoint, that had to be super valuable.
Yeah.
But like,
And that was when Tesla was much smaller too.
sure, yeah.
But more recently in the book, he started, like, he was leading meetings that are like critical to Tesla's long-term product roadmap that is beyond just design. But anyway, coming back to this, it's possible that Franz got so used to Walter being around that they're like, all right, they let him take pictures of this, and then this is the actual vehicle or vehicle model, or why not. So it's possible too. I don't know. But yeah, so let's assume that this is actually the Robotaxi, the concept. Yeah, I mean, a two-seater is wild, right? Like, does it make sense?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you think about most of the times you take a cab, you're either by yourself or with one other person. So maybe.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like you're also like often like, oh, let's split it between four of us.
Right.
like that also happens like relatively frequently. Now the idea is like it's gonna be so cheap, just call a second one.
Right.
You get drop off at two different locations. Like that's even better. Like, so there's some logic behind it.
And are these three-wheelers? These like Aptera things? I can't tell if they're three-wheel or four-wheel.
Yeah, you definitely can tell from this. From this, it looks more like a four-wheeler, but at the same time, it looks like the wheels in the back are not at the same level as the wheels in the front. They're a little bit more inside the frame. So it might be. If not, it might be like we were talking about the microcar in Germany last week, the Microlino that has this concept. It is a four-wheeler, but the back wheels are more inside too.
Right.
So it might be that also, which we noted. It's nice. It's good for efficiency, but it's a problem for getting around potholes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would be very surprised if it's a two-seater. At the same time, later on in the book, they talk about a few things that match this concept. One, futuristic Cybertruck-like. Looks like, I mean, this is a black and white picture, but it looks like a metal, possibly stainless steel finish, sharp edges. So it could fit the description of being Cybertruck-like. They say smaller than the Model 3. So it looks smaller for sure. If it's a two-seater, it has to be smaller. So there's a lot of things that add up here that this could be an actual Tesla Robotaxi early concept. I mean, it definitely is an early concept, but I mean, it could be still what Tesla has in mind for the Robotaxi. I don't know about the doors. The butterfly.
Yeah.
No, the butterfly. How do you call it those butterfly doors? I keep thinking about the Silicon Valley. Like they go like this, not like this, like this, like this. But it's interesting nonetheless. I mean, what was most interesting in the book about this Robotaxi, and they keep linking the Robotaxi and the cheap $25,000 vehicle together, is how not baked in the idea, the vehicle program is yet after it's even announced. Because I mean, Tesla has been talking about Robotaxi for a while,
Yeah, and
mainly,
$25,000 car as well.
yeah, mainly related to its existing vehicles becoming Robotaxis, which like obviously hasn't happened yet. But the Robotaxi dedicated vehicle was announced early last year, and at I don't remember exactly what event, but in the book they talk about a bunch of meetings that happened month after it was announced, where they're still discussing. It's gonna, like Elon said, it's going to be a dedicated robotaxi, all built around self-driving, and then months later they're like, yeah, I mean, it should probably have a wheel still. It should probably have pedals and everything. And then Elon was pushing back against that. Then there was the idea of maybe a removable mirrors, removable wheel, removable pedals, and Elon pushed back against that. He said he blame me if it doesn't work and all that. But it shows like when Elon's announced something, we really need to take it with a grain of salt, because this has been a running gag for a while now that the Tesla engineers, it's the first time they hear about it when Elon announced it on stage. But reading that book, it's like, all right, it's actually that's the truth. Actually,
That's the
well,
truth. Yeah.
at least based on these two vehicle programs, that $25,000 vehicle too, and the $25,000 vehicle, which I don't like the name because, especially these days with inflation and whatnot, like what is even $25,000? But Elon was apparently not excited about it, even though he's been talking about it for a while, and it was announced all the way back to the battery day when the 4680 was announced, because Elon says this is going to enable Tesla to make a $25,000 car. And then months later, I think even a year later, Elon was not excited about it. And it's only when friends showed him a concept of it next to the actual Robotaxi where he started getting excited about it. And not only that, after it was announced, friends and a bunch of engineers showed him a study that showed that Tesla needed a $25,000 car to achieve the 20 million vehicle per year goal, which I would have assumed that he already knew that, but they needed that to achieve it. And then he was like, all right, let's move forward with that. But I thought they were already moving forward about it. But at the same time, I remember also Elon saying that, calming everyone down early last year about the $25,000 Tesla. You remember when he said that we're not actually working on it right now because we're focusing on Model Y ramp up. So I know that there's been like ups and downs about the excitement around the vehicle program. All right. Oh yeah, that was interesting. Also from the book, it confirmed that Tesla will actually build that robotaxi and the next gen cheaper vehicle in Texas first rather than Mexico. So when Mexico was around earlier, this was announced earlier this year. It was announced as the place where the next gen vehicles are going to be built, the new Unbox vehicle platform, a vehicle manufacturing system going to be built there. Um, but that plans has changed recently in May. The book was almost in real time, really, like at least the latter part of the book. The book goes all the way back to the beginning of Elon's career and whatnot. Though it kind of shift through a little bit of it's kind of complementary, I feel, a little bit to the Ashley Vance book that cover more of the early years.
Yeah.
I mean, Ashley Vance's book has been out for a while now too, so I think it picks up a lot after that. But
I don't know
anyway,
if you remember on the Vance book, like when it came out, Elon was super pissed about it. And then later on, he was like, okay, like, and then now he's like friends with Vance, I think. Like they talk on Twitter sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't noticed that. I remember him being mad about it and everything, but the makeup, I don't remember. I haven't noticed. So in a recent meeting, as recently as May, Elon and the team decided that they are actually going to build the first vehicles, next gen vehicles in Texas on a new production line. That's going to be the new Unbox line designed there, simply because they want the engineers to live on the line. Basically, there has been a team at Tesla, and Elon's going to be there too. And all summer, they apparently have been already working on it, designing this new Unbox system. I have a GIF here that, if you don't remember exactly what it looks like, is this idea now that instead of having the body of the vehicle move along the entire production line, they're going to split the sections of the vehicle, and they're going to work on every section simultaneously and then bring it all together at the very end only, in order to be able to work. There's going to be more work done at the same time on the vehicle instead of moving an entire vehicle and then working on it bit by bit, which has been done since the Model T, really 100 years ago. So this would be a very revolutionary product. But at the same time, there's another thing, a report that came out today that threw a wrench into this. So that's where they were with the Unbox earlier this year, Investor Day, when they announced it. But is that the next article, or I'm skipping to it? Well, we'll jump to it anyway. So this is a report from Reuters about Tesla achieving a breakthrough for a single-piece car casting, which would add to the Unbox system somehow. That wasn't clear how it's going to be achieved in there, because it's not exactly what you see in the Unbox system. But the single-piece casting idea, of course, you know that Tesla has been investing heavily in Giga casting in the last few years. The Model Y now is produced at, well, not everywhere, but in Texas at least, with one big front casting part, one big rear casting part. The battery pack, structural battery pack, serves as the underbody. Join the two of them together, and you almost have an entire car. You just have a few side panels and whatnot. More like what you saw from the Unbox just now, Unbox system. The single casting piece has been something that Elon particularly have been talking about for a while. Says as he was inspired by the toy cars, the Hot Wheels, which are done as a single casting. Of course, they are no bigger than a few inches, but he was thinking, why can we not do the same thing with a car? And this is nothing exactly completely new. Like you can see here an actual patent application that Tesla had back in 2019 about some kind of giant Giga Press that would do the entire body of the car in one piece. But there's been a lot of innovation needed to achieve that. So when you do a patent, like a patent is an idea. It doesn't mean that you have the technology ready just yet. It's you have an idea for it, and then if everything comes together, it can result in an actual useful technology. But this new report from Reuters here states that Tesla has achieved a bunch of these new innovation that could now lead to this breakthrough, making this single piece Hot Wheel-like casting a reality. A few of the details that I find interesting here, and maybe I want to preface this because we often like jab on Reuters too about doing misleading reports on Tesla, negative misleading report on Tesla, and the Tesla fans are always on them on that. And there's good reason for that. We highlighted some very bad reporting on the report on Tesla. So when we say that about their negative reporting on Tesla, this is obviously a positive reporting. Like you have to take them both with a grain of salt. It works that way. But in this case, though, there's a lot of logic to the report that makes sense. And it's based on apparently 5 people familiar with the move, without naming them, obviously. But yeah, the idea is that Tesla is now using a 3D printing and industrial sand technology to create the mold for the casting. And the idea behind that is that the problem with the giant single piece casting is that they cost, the casting molds cost a lot of money, obviously. The bigger they are, the more they cost money. And why the automakers tend not to go that way is because they keep having to change those molds. They keep having to iterate them as part of the production process. So the more you have, the bigger you have them, the more money it costs. It gets out of control pretty quickly. And it also takes a lot of time to remake them when you make changes as you move along towards your production. So Tesla using instead 3D printing and industrial sand to create the molds has apparently reduced drastically those iteration time and cost, making now the technology possible. However, that using that technology itself created other problems, including a material science problem, where they have to find new alloys that both work with that molding process and also work as a good alloy for a car, which needs a bunch of requirements in terms of crash safety and all that, and longevity, repairability, and so forth. But if you've been following Tesla for a while now, you know that Tesla has a very strong material science team, one that they actually share with SpaceX, led by a former Apple executive. And yes, they apparently made some progress. We don't go into the details about that, but they apparently made some progress, and they're coming closer to that. The last piece of the puzzle too is obviously you're going to need a giant giga press for that. Tesla already is pushing the limits on that. They keep having the biggest giga presses in the world. Most recently, the 9,000 ton one for Cybertruck, and now they would arguably need an even bigger one. They're talking about up to 16,000 tons, which would be like a crazy machine, obviously. But at the same time, if it's going to be used for the next generation vehicle, which is a much smaller car, well, it makes sense to start with that. You start with a car that's much smaller, so you need a smaller press. Well, relatively to the car, obviously, because it's going to be still huge. They haven't decided on that just yet, according to the report. The report actually states that they plan to decide this month if they're going to use that technology for the next gen vehicle programs coming soon. So that could change obviously the whole Honbox manufacturing system. But the Honbox system could still work, obviously, because you basically, since the underbody of the car is still the battery pack system, so you can work on that. You can have the battery pack move along the line and install things on the battery pack, because now the seat, for example, bolts into it, the dash bolts into it, and then you can lower the entire body on top of it and then put the car together at the end. So the same concept could apply. It would be just change a little bit. All right, we have some very interesting data about the Tesla Semi that's been coming out this week, and throughout the next week, we're going to be reporting on that. I've been posting some information on my X account. Like I'm not doing an article every day on it because there's not that much information, but you can follow me on X for like the tiny little details. I'm going to have a bigger report at the end of this study that's going on as we speak, which is the North American Council for Freight Efficiency. The Run on Less program. It's running on 18 days. They have a bunch of different zero emission trucks that they are testing, and we get some data from them every day. At the end, we're gonna have a full study on it. So I'm gonna post only the highlights of it, but I posted the first day to announce the program here. So they have 3 different Tesla Semi running. So it's the first independent testing of the Tesla Semi that we've seen, and you get the total mileage that they do in a day, the number of deliveries that they do with these. Throughout these miles, and then you get even like granular data like this battery charge versus the speed that they're driving. So you can see that these trucks are mainly driving on the highway at 60 miles per hour. Then you have the battery state of charge charted up with the distance. So you can see the first truck did 416 miles the first day. You have the truck's activity, so you can see when it's inactive, when it's driving, when it's charging, when it's idling. Same thing with the speed, charging versus regeneration. Like this didn't work for the first day or in the second day, but it's not working for the third day. So don't take into account for this. Like not all the data is working, and you have that for all 3 Tesla Semis going on right now. So the first one I said over 400 miles, 276 for this one, 545 for this one. There was one yesterday that I posted this morning that did 789 miles in a single day. With 5 deliveries, I think. So that's pretty impressive. That's an actual like real world use case for a zero emission battery electric truck. You have some other trucks in there too, but the Tesla Semi is like, I'm not trying to be biased here, is the most exciting because like if you look at the Nikola truck, for example, it's by What EV did 61 miles in a day. But did 17 deliveries because they're just using it. I think What EV is at the LA port, if I'm not mistaken. So it's driving very short distances, just moving like cargo around. So it's not, I mean, it's a great use case for an electric vehicle. All these things should be electric for sure by now, but it's just not as good data, as fun data as what we want to see, which is we want to see diesel powered mileage on long haul trucking being replaced by zero emission battery mileage that is powered by clean energy. That's what we want to see. And I mean, we've been following the Tesla Semi program for so long. Like it's 2017. It was unveiled. We were there at the event, and was it 2017?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And and now like 6 years later, we're finally seeing these trucks on the road doing some work. All right, Seth, we talked a little bit last week about the IAA, the protests that were going around that were quite mild, really. Um,
Relatively.
but apparently, there's something else that happened that was not mild, that is related to IAA, even though it didn't happen in Munich. So, for those, I don't know if we talked about it on air last week, but IAA used to be in Frankfurt until 4 years ago, well, two editions ago. Like they do it every 2 years, and they move it to Munich. And the idea why they moved it to Munich, it was that they were getting a lot of protests in Frankfurt, which I don't know. Like maybe our German listener could chime in here. Like what's the cultural aspect of it? But I don't know if like there's more. It's more liberal in Frankfurt. I don't know how that works, but
Well, it was called the Frankfurt Auto Show,
yeah.
like auto, whereas IAA is,
So
internet.
it was the show itself attracting more protests rather than the location being more at risk of protests, maybe.
I don't know.
So
As somebody who took a train from Frankfurt to Munich the morning before the show, really not that far. Like
yeah,
protesters could easily
yeah,
just hop
can
on a
no,
train.
not if they don't have cars.
The
Oh, they
train,
could go on the train, yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, is the train too polluting too? Like you
I
have
think
to,
I think they're supposed to take bikes and walk, not
yeah,
electric bikes, just regular bikes.
yeah. I mean, we're talking about pretty hardcore people here. Yeah, I mean, we discussed though that the Greenpeace put some cars in the pond in front of the IA Messe in Munich, and I found these pictures because we missed it when we were there. We didn't see it happen. We were in the Messe, I guess, like doing our jobs. But Greenpeace posted that picture, and I look at that picture, and that has to be Photoshop, right?
I
Because
You would think.
that pond was like no more than a feet or two of
Yeah, you
water.
could see
Like
the bottom. I mean, there were like lights down there and stuff. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
a
yeah.
pond. It's
Y-
more like just a
Well,
water
it's an,
covered.
an artificial feature, pond
Right.
feature, water feature. But there's no way like there's a car that looks like fully emerged. Like that doesn't look real. I'm pretty sure this is Photoshop. Anyway, that was the height of the protest in Munich last week. But on Tuesday in Frankfurt, 15 Tesla vehicles were lit on fire. They were torched down, causing €500,000 of damage, uh, affecting other cars in the same time. And a day later, yesterday, we learned that a radical group has taken credit for the criminal attack, for the arson attack. And they posted on a German version of the indie media website. They posted basically a letter explaining that. They linked it to the IAA protest. So they said, like, yeah, this was related to the IAA. So this is an attack against vehicles and everything, but especially Tesla. So yeah, they said that we flambe, like I'm sure it's like I translated from German, so we burned down some new Tesla in Frankfurt tonight as a greeting to the protest in Munich, uh, as one attack among many of the destructive auto industry. So they say it's a retribution against the auto industry. So I won't get into all the details of their maniac letter here, but in general, there's two main. They hate Elon Musk. They don't like Elon. They say he has patriarchal fantasies. They take particular issues with Neuralink and his Mars colonization effort, which they think is about creating a vacation spot for the rich, which is as madness as like if you need an idea of how like disconnected from reality those people are, they think that rich people want to go vacation on Mars. Like that's how connected to science they are. They think that rich people want to spend at best 6 months in a tiny little thing in space to get there, possibly lose their life, then get in. You don't arrive in the Fijis when you get there. You arrive in a desolate planet with not much to see and a very harsh condition. Like it's not. If anyone wants to colonize Mars, it has nothing to do with being a vacation spot for the rich. But anyway, when it comes to Tesla, I'm losing my voice right now. When it comes to Tesla, their point was a little bit more rational, though not that rational. It's about lithium and cobalt mining, um, more specifically about how it's represent oppression to indigenous communities. Now, I can sympathize with that to a degree. I think like no one wants no one wants to marginalize indigenous communities. However, the main point I want to bring out here, so I understand wanting to bring attention to that. I don't think that's the right way to do it. Obviously, a criminal act is is not that. But when you make you make an action so grand, so maniac like that, you have to have great proof here. You have to at least, like, all right, show me some example of lithium and cobalt mining that negatively affected an indigenous community and is benefiting Tesla too, because you're automatically blaming Tesla, and they didn't do that, so that doesn't look good there. Now, from I follow a lot of mining projects related to lithium and cobalt and other battery related resources, and deals with indigenous communities, especially in Canada and the US, are a must. Like every time there's a deal with them, they don't always agree. Then sometimes it involves a bunch of different tribes, but most of the times it does include a very lucrative deal with indigenous community that they are the first one to approve. Like when you invest in a new mining project, that's one of the first thing that you look that they lock in. Do they have a deal? If it is related to a land indigenous people, which is not always is, obviously, then um, they have that. It's a big plus. So you have to give us an example here of, like, all right, this is something, especially cobalt. So cobalt is a more difficult one because cobalt is especially mined in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I assume that's like their biggest, like that's where they have the strongest point there. But at the same time, that's not even really the problem with Congo. The problem with Congo is more like the disorganization of, like, the use of disorganized and sometimes even child labor. But that problem is not even like a deal with the indigenous communities there. It's more about, like, how do we get, like, a more organized way to mine it, because they want the people there, they want to mine this because they don't have jobs otherwise. That's how they get money. So they want this to happen. It's just they want this to happen in a safe way, and right now it's not happening. Not everywhere. There's like two ways. There's the industrial mines, and then there's the artisanal mines that are the problems. But I feel like that's a completely different problem. Also, you want to burn down Tesla doing that? Tesla's use of cobalt is extremely minimal in their batteries. Like, their batteries use very minimal cobalt, and they're moving away from cobalt too for a lot of their vehicles. So it's not really the best examples. Also, at the same time, Tesla's just gonna get insurance money and then build those cars again. So what?
Yeah, and it's going to take more resources.
Yeah, they're just gonna mine more.
So
It's
clearly, these aren't the sharpest tools in the shed over there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm not
like
big on using morons in the headlines, but I felt like
that was justified.
yeah, that was justified for this time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to burn down some cars, like, hey, why not some, gas pickups? I guess, like, like pick the cars that are causing the most problems. And I feel like these guys are not doing themselves any favors. Like, hitting electric vehicles, like, just it doesn't seem like they're getting the most bang for their buck in terms of, like, trying to get goodwill from outside folks. This kind of just seems like, hey, we're going to be dicks about everything, and we're not trying to get people on our side.
Yeah, because the real environmentalists, they look at that and, like, that's just you just created more emissions than any kind of your activism could save. Like, this just doesn't work or save or eliminate, I should say. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I get the whole, like, fewer cars on the road. Like, that actually
Yeah.
strikes a nerve with me. Like, I get it, but, like, come on, let's come up with some solutions here. Let's, like, train infrastructure, bike infrastructure. Those are all things we need, but I don't know. It just seems like,
Yeah.
it's like the PETA things, that when they, throw paint on, people's mink coats or whatever. Seems just not the right
The
way.
approach is failing. The execution is
Right.
failing. Like, I get the sentiment, but the execution. I mean, you should have seen the emails I've gotten from after writing this article. Said, like, it's discouraging for the future of humanity sometimes. Like I got someone that's like, I don't know why you criticize those people taking those violent action, because any kind of peaceful protest is racist and like I think I stopped reading there. I was like, all right, peaceful protesting is racist though. So that to Martin Luther King and whatnot. All right, this just came out today. Actually, the Cybertruck might get some optional scratch-proof coating that's gonna make it scratch-proof to almost everything except things that are diamond level hard. So that's surprising, because I mean already the Cybertruck is we thought the stainless steel finish was already enough in terms of ruggedness, is that a word?
Yeah, ruggedness.
But I guess, I mean, if you don't remember, because there's been fewer events of that, thankfully, but at one point there was a lot of Tesla being keyed. Sort of similarly to what we just discussed, like Tesla vandals, like to obviously different degrees here with arson. But for a while, it was fairly common, especially in California, especially in Silicon Valley, where there's some rivalry between the more like hippie community and the techies, where they didn't like people driving Teslas, and they would key them, and that's kind of where a Sentry model generated to prevent that, or to at least like shame people when it happened, or catch them, sending the video to police. But and that, it has worked for some. I would have heard a lot less of that lately, but in the last week or two, there's been a few instances that came out on social media, and someone commented on X saying that with the Cybertruck, it's gonna people keying the Cybertruck going to ruin the keys, not the Cybertruck. And then Elon added to that, we might be able to offer an optional tungsten carbide coating, which is basically scratch proof to everything below diamond hardness. So it sounds like it could be one of the few options available for the Cybertruck, this tungsten carbide coating. But at the same time, Elon has mentioned a few other possible Cybertruck features, optional features like the solar roof, for example, that we haven't heard for a while. And with the Tesla Cybertruck deliveries or delivery event starting soon, I don't know what we should expect in terms of options and accessories for Cybertruck. I mean, technically, even the Cyber Quad is accessories to the Cybertruck.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like the Cybertruck has a different look to it when it's been used a little bit, and I don't know if that's if that's the look you're going for, which look kind of seems like Mad Max, been driving around the desert kind of look, then that's good. But I don't know.
I think it's people are gonna like be proud of, like, if their Cybertruck is like beat up a little bit, like people are
Right.
gonna be like, yeah, I'm using it. We'll see.
I don't know if it just doesn't seem like it's going to be mass market to me. But maybe
I mean, that's one other part in the book that we saw. I mean, we kind of already knew about that, but they went into a little bit more details in terms of a lot of people at Tesla not being a fan of the
the
Cybertruck,
designers.
and designer working on an alternative and everything, but Elon kind of shutting it down. Even though like they can still bring it back if it doesn't work.
Didn't Elon say that, like, before the launch of the Cybertruck, that if this one doesn't work out, they've got a backup plan, kind of thing?
But you know what? Like, I think it's almost impossible for it not to work out at this point. I mean, to a certain degree, like especially now with what we heard from our supplier sources that they're planning about 300, 400,000 vehicles a year. Cybertruck might be hated by like 90% of people, but that's still that 10% of like Elon and Tesla super fans that are gonna want it anyway. That's gonna be enough.
But are there enough of those people that are?
There's a lot of them.
A lot.
Like, there's a lot. And okay, sorry. And then that combined also with the people that, like, because Tesla, like, you have to give Tesla credit where credit is due in terms of like specs and performance. Like, they hit the mark there. So there's a lot of people too that don't care about what the vehicle look like. If it hits everything else, they're like, oh, that's a good
I don't know.
investment.
I mean, normally I don't care too much what the vehicle looks like, but that is like
that's too much.
I mean, the Cybertruck is singular, and like there's nothing that even comes close to it in what it looks like, for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Some people love it. Some, I kind of flip flop on it. Like when it has like a nice skin on it, I don't think it looks too bad. But like the pictures I've been seeing recently of it being used, like I don't know if I could. And then the other thing is like, so when Elon goes out to like the Chappelle comedy thing, and he goes in front of the
Mm-hmm.
public, the general public, and
Yeah.
you could say like a Chappelle audience isn't the general public, almost universally booed. Like
And the
so
Chappelle product too is one that's like anti woke and all that. Like that is
I would
it
think
should.
so. Like
Yeah.
not anti-trans, but like
Yeah.
anti-trans woke. Anyway, kind of surprised me that, and then he was just like they showed him at a gaming thing,
A
and
League of Legend
yeah, like
tournament too. Yeah.
and like also like universally booed, and
Yeah, people were like saying like bring back Twitter or like
Twitter, yeah,
or I don't know if they were talking about the name or like actual like
yeah.
like
So I mean,
policies.
so either you dislike Elon, and this is the ultimate representation of Elon is the Cybertruck,
Mm-hmm.
or you love Elon and it's the ultimate, but then also you're driving around something that is very representative of Elon. So like people will be trying the windows and see if they're really bulletproof, like those kind of things.
I mean, I'm looking at. I guess I'm biased with my perspective here because I mean I'm the first one to criticize Elon when and he needs to be, I think. But uh, if all the specs hit what I want, I'm gonna be the first in line to get it over most vehicle out there. I mean, the other ones I'm considering right now is maybe at this point it's gonna be the Silverado, maybe.
Interesting.
The F-150 Lightning, I kind of want to wait for like the next generation. I think the next generation is going to be such a big difference, and it's coming like relatively soon.
Yep.
So like it
15.
obviously timing is way different for me in Canada too. Like it changed everything.
So the Rivian's
Um,
off your list.
they sent me last month. They sent me or the month before that an update, and like they say now like first quarter 2024. And I mean I've kind of lost hope a little bit for the Rivian in Quebec. I don't know what they're doing, but
I kind of feel like you could rattle some chains, like change your address to Ontario or something.
I don't know. Maybe I should give it a shot, but
Vancouver.
I don't even know if they're gonna be able to build my configuration to the way I actually get the like the price that I were originally supposed to get. So pricing also like I don't want like a $100,000 Canadian truck either. Like I want like something a little bit more reasonable.
Right.
We'll see. All right, we have a few more news items to discuss, and then we'll jump into the comment section. If you guys have any question for us, if you can put like I've seen a lot of conversation right now in the chat, so it's going to be hard for us to get into some questions. So if you guys have some questions, just put question in front of it, and then we're going to get to it and answer it a little bit later on the show in a few minutes. Or if you have any like a new subject in the EV world you wanted to discuss that we didn't touch today, you can put that in too. We're gonna get into it in a few minutes. So we were just talking about Tesla moving like the Giga Press stuff, and now Hyundai has confirmed that they also have a plan for that. Not the single casting that we just discussed, but a more larger casting, a little bit closer to what Tesla is doing with the Model Y right now. And they are adding themselves to a list of automakers that have signaled that, including Toyota, Volkswagen, Volvo, that have signaled that they are moving towards that. And so it's based on a new trademark for hypercasting. So they're moving. They don't want to use the term used by Tesla with gigacasting, and it looks like it's planned for 2026. But as we just discussed, as they were getting to the gigacasting stuff, Tesla is already moving to the single piece casting stuff. So,
I mean, did we discuss like like when there's an accident, like is it more likely to be totaled if it's a single
yeah,
piece?
yeah. I mean, there's discussions about that, but honestly, like these days, like any kind of significant accident that affects the body of the vehicle, like the instruments are totaling it anyway. So I'm not as concerned about that as most people are, just because of what I'm seeing. Um, I might be wrong though, but from what I'm seeing, like if you have something that affects the body already with the multicasting technology, insurers tends to like, oh, it's total. We're not fixing that.
Right.
So I don't know. All right, the European Union announced that they are sending a probe into incentive given in Europe to electric vehicles or electric vehicle buyers and companies that are coming from China. So they're seeing a big surge of it, and obviously this is the protectionist alarm bell has been rung now in Europe, and they're like, ding, 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 this is going to be a problem. I'm sure that they got a little call from BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, and all that, and they're like, all right, we're going to look into it, and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced the probe this week, and they're going to look into it. And obviously, I would expect something to happen about that because obviously China does it, the US does it. So I wouldn't be surprised if the EU start realizing, why are we the only one giving subsidies to vehicles that are not built here? And they should probably do something about it. I'm not saying they should. Like I'm for as much subsidies as possible on electric vehicles as long as they're not counterparts on the gasoline part side. But I also understand from the EU perspective, like they are letting them their auto industry erode with those Chinese. I mean, here in the report we mentioned BYD, NIO, and Xpeng, but which are Chinese companies coming to Europe right now. But I would put Tesla in that. I would assume that Tesla is also going to be affected by that because they send a lot of Chinese vehicles to Europe. And I would assume that even though it's not a Chinese company, they would also be hit by those potential new import fees. Obviously, Tesla is in a little better position, though, because they have Gigafactory Berlin. So if there is some time between now and when the new potential import fees come in place, they could ramp up production in Berlin and counter the effect of that.
Hey, did we talk about the 2024 Kona Electric?
Oh, I skipped that. You're right. Yeah, so we have a bigger, bolder, and better than ever Kona Electric 2024. So kind of forget some time about the Kona because it's like one of those three powertrain vehicles with the gasoline, the hybrid, and then the all electric one. But it's still a popular vehicle in some market. And now let's go with the new specs here. Do we have I like to have like a nice chart for that.
Especially with the bolt disappearing. You know, this is kind
Yeah.
of like
That will disappearing for a short period of time, probably. It should come back
right.
as a next generation.
You
All
kinda
right,
wanna-
so a new and improved drag coefficient of 0.27, which for a crossover is pretty good. New pixelated system horizon lamp running across the front. So that's kind of reminiscent of the Ionic.
exactly, yeah. A little bit of
took from that.
ionic.
I mean, they still have that charge part in the front, which is ridiculous. That's the first thing I would have killed. Larger tech-infused living space, horizontal CPAD integrated dual 12.3 panoramic display in the front.
I mean, that back seat looks exactly like the Bolt.
Yeah.
A little tight.
The front seats are 30% slimmer. That sounds like a big change. But there's more leg room, they say.
Oh, I guess it's like slimmer in that, like the thickness.
Oh, the thickness of this here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
It's
get more
hard to,
room in the back, I guess.
yeah, hard to tell from this. Though that curve looks kind of pronounced, so maybe it makes sense. All right, do we have some updated powertrain spec or two battery option, 48.6 kilowatt hour with 133 horsepower motor, and then 64.8 kilowatt hour. That sounds the same, right?
I think that is the same, but it does have vehicle to load now, which I think is an improvement.
Okay.
At least over the initial ones, that might be from last year.
Yeah, we don't have pricing yet, so obviously the pricing is going to be an important factor here because it is in the cheaper lineup of electric vehicles. So if the price point can be attractive, it could still be a successful vehicle. I like this color. This color, like this tennis ball color, is it's different.
Keep coming back to the Bolt, but there's a shock. It's called shock on the Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
1 year they did that. I also say, like, the problem with the Kona, I think now is that since the Infrastructure Reduction Act came into play, you don't get much, if any, money back unless you lease this thing. So, compared to like, the U.S. made Bolt or other, I don't want to say it's the same thing, but like, Mustang Model Y, those type of vehicles, you're saving a lot of money. So this is going to be priced similar to the Model Y, and clearly it's not nearly as robust of a vehicle in a lot of ways. So it's going to be a hard sell on that point.
Yeah, it's always hard to fight subsidies. Like if you have a vehicle that has it, the other that doesn't, it doesn't make much sense.
Right.
All right, we have this interesting report this week about the energy secretary. She set out this summer on a road trip to highlight the goal. Like, so it was featured in the NPR article. So Jennifer Granholm, U.S. Energy Secretary, set out with all her staff and a crew and an NPR journalist to cover the thing in a road trip, AV road trip from Charlotte, North Carolina to Memphis, Tennessee. And the goal is drawing attention to the billions of dollars the White House is pouring into green energy and clean cars. Okay. So they had a few stops on the way, obviously, and there's plenty of things between those two locations that involves electric vehicles. North Carolina, of course, has a bunch of EV plants there. Tennessee has VW. So they set out in a Cadillac Lyriq, a Ford F-150 Lightning, in a Chevy Bolt. They didn't say if it was the EV or EUV. And actually, Granholm is an EV driver herself. Used to have a Bolt. Now drives a Mustang Mach-E. So she was very well aware that this is not going to be a super easy trip. And I mean, I've done, like, if you remember last year, I've did my review of an electric road trip in the south, and then I did in the Mach-E, and I noted that it is a real problem in terms of non-Tesla vehicle charging infrastructure in the south of the U.S. is just not there yet for long distance driving. It's still doable. Like I did it successfully, but it was stressful. Like I hadn't felt that kind of range anxiety in a little bit. While if I would have done it with my Tesla, I would have had no problem. And the NPR article, by the way, like is pretty good at it. Like I would save it. I linked it in an article and send it to your friends in the South, maybe that like are not, like, they think that EVs are never going to happen because of the charging problem. It's pretty good at explaining the fact that, yeah, this is a problem for sure. But for non-Tesla Tesla vehicles are fine right now in the South. And obviously this $7.5 billion coming aims to fix that. But what was very hilarious about the trip is that, look, if you're going to show like how an electric vehicle road trip works these days, like you have to show the problems too. And they try to cheat where when they arrive in Georgia, in Grovetown, which is just outside of Augusta, Georgia, they arrive at an Electrify America station, or actually, so there was these 3 electric vehicles that they had, but they also had Secret Service people following them around in SUVs and whatnot, and staffers. And they send the staffer ahead. We realized that one of the charging station was broken. Not a big surprise in the Electrify America station, but also, and there was another one that was in use, so that they couldn't charge all 3 vehicles at the same time. So what they did is that when one of the one in use left, they put one of the gasoline cars in that parking spot to block it, so that when
which is messed up, by the way.
Yeah, super
that's
messed
like
up. So
almost like a war crime in my book.
Yeah, and so that when the energy secretary would arrive, she could charge. But someone arrived before her, so that was the goal, obviously. So if that happens, they couldn't charge, and that person was pissed. They had a baby in the car. It was super hot. They needed to charge to get home, and they started to argue with the staffer involved. The article was never explaining like whose idea it was, but whoever idea it was a poor idea, because it makes everyone involved looks bad. And they ended up calling the cops on the energy secretary to have this handled, because they said, "I'm here first. This is a gasoline car. It has no business in the spot." Completely in their
I agree.
rights.
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately for them, though, in Georgia, there's no laws preventing gasoline vehicles to park in charging spot for EVs, which is a crime by itself. The legislature in Georgia needs to get on that ASAP. It makes no sense to do that. It's not a parking spot; it's a charging spot. Um, so, but I mean, I guess they still understood that they were in the wrong, so that they tried to negotiate with them, and they ended up finding level 2 charging station, or I don't know if they said level 2, but they said slower charging stations, and to charge the vehicles so that the person could charge. But still, it's an extremely bad look that highlight our issues with, again, non-Tesla charging, because that would have been a lot easier. Because there's a bunch, especially around that area, there's actually a bunch of Tesla charging station superchargers, which Tesla could open to non-Tesla vehicles to help, but that's coming.
Yeah, so I'm actually taking a trip this afternoon to Cape Cod, and there's no charging stations on Cape Cod. There's like one right at the beginning. So I was like, what? Like Cape Cod doesn't have any
it's a big tourist
EVs?
spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Tesla supercharger like halfway up, but like I'm taking the Rivian, so I got to charge at the beginning of Cape Cod and then do all my stuff up there and maybe get a slow charger, and then when I come back, charge on the way out.
Wherever you're staying, there's no level 2 wherever you're staying?
There's like one down the street at like a CVS, but I know that's going to be really kind of a hassle to walk.
I mean,
there
hotels. Hotels. They need. I mean, I don't know. It's a hotel that you're staying or Airbnb, whatever. But
it's a hotel.
Yeah, hotels. It's a no-brainer. They need to install those. I mean, we didn't talk. I don't think we talked about that because I mean, this week is podcast a little bit because last week was on a Wednesday, so it's like we cover in like a week and a half basically. But Tesla had this big deal with the Hilton hotels, like 20,000 universal chargers coming to Hilton hotels at 2,000 Hilton hotels location in North America. I didn't even know that Hilton hotels at 2,000 location in North America.
Well, there's a lot of brands. They have like
the smaller ones, I guess, like
Right.
the Holiday Inns, they're everywhere. I don't know if that's Hilton, but whatever. So yeah, that's a no-brainer. And they said something like 6 minimum per hotel. So that's smart too. Like you need a bunch of them, because I did arrive at some hotels sometimes where there was only 2 and they were already in use. Though generally you can ask the desk and the inform the person, because normally they already charge and everything.
Yeah, I wonder what like the optimum final like boss situation looks like at a hotel. Like what is it going to look like in 2024 or 2040 when
yeah, that's a year from yeah, 20,
next
yeah,
year?
that's a good question. Well, yeah, you mean like are all the parking lot have a charging spot? Is that what you're saying? Like
Maybe. I mean, what do you do? I kind of feel like you just put like outlets everywhere.
yeah,
I mean, that's
there's level
cheap and
1.
easy.
Yeah, level 1 is not bad too.
Yeah,
You
just make sure
can
there's an outlet. You get 40, 50 miles extra. And then
so
of
you
course
can
the
get to
people
that level 3 at some point else
right, and
too.
then the people who are in dire need can use a level 2 charger.
That you charge money for too, like
Yeah,
because
and
right
make some
now
money.
a lot of hotels, they don't even charge you for charging overnight too.
Yeah, I mean most of the
Some
hotels
some are yeah.
most of the hotels I go to, and I'm like, hey, that charger out there, I need to get it started. They're like, we have no idea what that is. I don't know how to work it. Like, what somebody put it there. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's really like, and like it should be part of a hotel experience. Like, hey,
Mhm.
like there's somebody pooped in the pool. Like they could go fix that. Like what? Why can't you? That's a particularly gross one, but
Yeah.
it just seems like, guys, it's really not that hard. Although I will say, like, we had some of Rachel's relatives in town, and they're very smart people. They're very like green people and whatever. They have Prius. The whole car charging thing for them was like really like, they were driving, up to Cape Cod with our Tesla, and they decided to get off the freeway, and we had mapped out the chargers for them. They got off the freeway. They went like 20 miles or 10 miles to a whatever, and we're like, well, now you got to change your charging stations. And they were kind of like, that it was just kind of weird that like, they're not thinking that way when they could have just obviously pulled into a supercharger or whatever. Anyway, point is, it's kind of a new world for everybody.
Yeah.
All right, should we jump into the comments here?
Yeah, yeah. I got a few minutes.
Jonathan Root wishes it was actually a Friday afternoon. Same here.
Yeah.
AC will save your life in Phoenix or Dallas when there's a power outage and a heat event. That's a pretty good point. Sad maybe commentary on the situation, like with the heat indexes. But like if you lose power in some of these places in the middle of a heat thing, like you're gonna die. I mean, obviously you can go to, get in your car and go somewhere or whatever, but pretty important stuff to use backup power things, especially in these areas. All right, SolarEdge are using rebranded K-Star Cattle LFP batteries on their three-phase inverters. Not sure if you know the chemistry of this new Powerwall. We kind of speculated that it was the same chemistry because of the weight.
Yeah. I think it's NCA. I think they use on the Powerwalls. It's NMC on the cars, NCA on the Powerwalls, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Ismail Youssef, that Robotaxi design looks too much like a concept and not really worth commenting on. Wait at least until it's actually moving on its own. Well, we had two different examples of it, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's still worth reporting on it, I think. But
that was their thinking at least one point in the process. Carl in San Diego, at the least, they'd want a bench seat so it could handle 3 in a row, squeeze in a child. Bucket seats don't fly for a taxi.
Yeah, I'm also skeptical on the 2 seats situation.
Our old friend Joe Boras, it doesn't look that different from the original Rivian concept coupe.
I don't remember that one.
I think the early EVs all had that some kind of small efficiency play. Wheels in the back are narrow track, like the original Honda Insight and the VW XL1. Those are both like super aerodynamic vehicles. Maybe that was kind of what they were thinking back in 2016.
Yeah, I can see that.
Most exciting thing about Tesla Semi is nobody seems to care about the amount of load it carries for any given mileage numbers. I don't know if that's the most exciting thing, but certainly that'll be part of the equation. I hope to see Electrek do a day-long test drive of the Tesla Semi. Could be very interesting.
Hey, I just now remember we're supposed to have a test drive of the Tesla Semi. We won through the referral program, right? We never got that.
Oh my god, I totally forgot about that.
That's like from 6 years ago or something. We're supposed to have that. Never got it. Let me call Elon Musk.
Yeah, DM him. We'll get right on that. By the way, do you need a special license to drive those things, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it was on the test track, like do a launch on a test track or something like that, which I would still be down to do if it's not as cool as a full day-long driving
regarding German trains, are they electric? They are, but depends on where they get their power from. But the German grid is awfully green, and there are a lot of solar panels on the sides of the road. So, Carl in San Diego, since you framed it this way, no, EV protesters don't have to skip the electric train. They uses pantographs and doesn't use batteries, and e-bike are sustainable where full-size EVs won't scale. Full-size EVs, I guess. Under zero carbon future. No, I don't support arson. I hope not. They definitely already burned gas cars. The cobalt thing is baffling. It's been used to refine diesel and gasoline for a century, but here we are. Morons is 100% justified.
Yeah.
Well,
I think there's a lot. Obviously, the use of it has increased a lot in batteries, but even like before EVs, like batteries with consumer electronics, like consumer electronics use a lot more cobalt as a percentage in batteries.
As a percentage, yeah.
Yeah, than EVs, just because of the need of density, of energy density.
All right, a little bit of a sidetrack on indigenous exploitation problems. When they thunk all the way through, is complicated. These people, even the kids, are desperate for basic living supplies. So they starve without the money. That's not a great commentary on the situation. All right, will the scratch-proof coating be to regular gold color of tungsten coating of drill bits and saw blades? Is that
That's you could change the color potentially. There could be like a second, like a other beneficial effect of you get like this $2,000 coating, you get to see it's scratch proof, and also you get a different color than everybody else because there's going to be a lot of stainless steel finished Cybertrucks out there.
All right, we have some very anecdotal stuff here. My wedding ring is tungsten carbide, which is interesting, and it isn't as shiny as when I got it. It has millions of micro scratches, and it's not as ugly as off-putting as a Cybertruck. Cybertruck will continue to create class wars with EV versus ICE cars. I don't. All right, we're kind of going into some weird places here.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation in the chat too.
Let's see if we can find some questions.
Yeah.
I have a deposit for the Cybertruck and Silverado. So you mentioned the Silverado. Why are you a Silverado guy instead of a Ford F-150 guy?
I mean, because I'm like that big battery. Like it's attractive to have a big battery.
It's a
Like
very big battery.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know, man. There's some of these trailers, these new like trailers that have been like coming up lately, like the living, not the living vehicle. That thing is like insanely expensive, but the other one I forget the name, but it's from the Tesla engineers, and it's the one that is super aerodynamic and it pops up and it's all glass and it looks super cool, and you can have a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack and a drivetrain in it, like that, and the Silverado, like you can drive basically all day, like do like 600 miles in a day with a little charging stop, be like in completely different places, and like just
I
put
feel
the
like we
camper
have to
on.
have an intervention with you and Jamie. Like Jamie's gonna have to talk to you about this a little bit.
Why? What would Jamie say about me?
Jamie's like always, hey,
Oh,
nobody too many miles.
oh yeah. I mean, and I agree with him, except for that, except for a truck, because of if you actually use it for pulling a trailer, pulling some load, then it does make sense.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I agree with him. Like I wouldn't want to lucid hair with 500 miles or range, and like a sedan, like a luxury sedan with 500 mile range, that doesn't attract me. But a truck that has 500 miles of range and 250 miles of range with a full load trailer, that's interesting to me.
All right. I won't comment on that because I am in the
Yeah, you have a giant Rivian.
a giant. It's a midsize. It's true. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
And I honestly I don't know if I need it.
yeah. I mean,
All right.
there's
So
more battery capacity at your house
I know.
than at the mega pack.
I know that's what's frustrating is like I wish I could just have the batteries modular and like, hey, I'm going somewhere, take the batteries that I need. Anyway,
Have a little
yeah,
lift that you can put in
I
every
need a
car.
little one of those the Tesla robot things
Oh yeah,
that lift things.
arms.
All right, this is interesting. I didn't know about this. Carl in San Diego says you can do a 1-day lease. So this would be to kind of circumvent the you know uh for cars that don't
Oh,
qualify for
really?
the yeah, so you do a 1-day lease and you get the $7,500 tax credit. You buy the lease out immediately. We did that with the BMW i4. Only problem with using the lease loophole with an instant buyout is with some states like Texas who tax you twice. Interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. We're gonna have our leasing guy look into that because that
Yeah,
would
we have
be
a
pretty.
leasing expert. Might as well do an article on that because that's
Yeah.
an interesting loophole.
All right. No more range anxiety with LTO. When you buy out the lease immediately, they cannot charge you the lease rent interest. Buyer beware because some manufacturers make it hard to do the buyout, forcing you to do the dealerships.
Yeah, Tesla's one of them.
Mm-hmm. So Granholm learned about icing, and then there should be a federal guidance so Georgia doesn't need to pass its own rule independently. That would be nice. Federal guidance.
Yeah,
Cape Cod is a destination. Destination charging is appropriate. You're right.
yeah.
I
That's why I'm surprised that the hotel don't have it. Like, if I'm
I
a
know.
hotel at a
And
big destination like that, I would do it.
there are some, and so we're going
Mm.
all the way up to Provincetown. There are some like destination chargers that we will probably use. It's just like we would love to have a faster
Mm.
charging option, obviously. You will significantly shorten the battery pack lifetime using supercharger on this chemistry.
Which chemistry?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because we just
Oh,
posted a
LTO.
study. Huh?
He talked about LTO before, so
Oh.
I don't know. Let's see. Let's move on. Destination charging output should be matched with the distance they are from fast charging nearby. Some places really need level 2. I guess that's a good point. The lightship designers haven't explained how the drivetrain will coordinate with tow vehicle. That's going to be difficult to control.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's the one I was talking about, lightship.
Mm-hmm. All right, last thing. Steve Rose, is there a date yet for Cybertruck event? Do we have a
Nope,
date?
not yet, but I would assume it's coming soon. At least the announcement for the event is coming soon. I thought it was going to be this week, so still one more day. Or maybe it's going to be this weekend. But yeah, I would expect it's coming soon. And it could be like also soon after the announcement. Like Tesla has been known nowadays like to do like, all right, it's going to happen like in 2 weeks from now rather than a month. Wouldn't be too surprising. And what we've been seeing for the Cybertruck lately with the crash test vehicle being spotted and all that, like it's a real possibility. Things could move quite fast. So we'll keep you updated on that. We'll post as soon as we know. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you do enjoy the show, if you can give us a like, a thumbs up, wherever it is on your app that you're watching live, it helps. Also, if you can hit subscribe to know whenever we go live, because we're going to be traveling a lot in the next month or two. So the show might not be on the Friday afternoon like it usually is. So by hitting the notification button, you will know exactly when we go live. That's very useful. We do always post an article on Electrek at the same time that tells you when the show is going to be. If you're listening on your podcast app, we appreciate you too. And if you can give us a 5-star review, that also helps the show a ton. We appreciate when you do that. We read the reviews too. And we're going to see you next week.